Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Macabre Podcast Universe. It's the podcast where we take on franchises. They have to have 3 or more. And right now, today, we are in the throes of Marvel Phase 3, and we are doing Spider-Man Homecoming, which is just kind of funny because by this point in time, there had already been, this would be the 6th live-action Spider-Man movie. But this is the first one in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Is he the most, people have made superhero movies on him the most?
I mean, I don't know. But as a solo person, I would assume so. Because there's probably more X-Men movies.
At the company I work at, there is a children's book coming out about Spider-Man. And one of the marketing points said that he is the most beloved comic book character.
Oh, yeah. That's easy. Yeah.
So I was like, in a way, it's like, yeah, of course, Spider-Man. But it's like, oh, interesting.
No, he's the most popular. It's probably like him, then maybe Batman, then probably Superman, I would guess. Top 3.
You think it's because he's so relatable to a younger audience?
Oh, yeah. He's the best. He rules. He's my favorite superhero. Grew up reading his comics. Love him so much. Love even the movies I don't like Amazing Spider-Man movies. I still kind of like them. I can still watch him because it's Spider-Man. He's just, if you get even one aspect of his complex, good character right, the movie's worth watching.
Yeah.
Having said that, as you, the listener, know, Jordan and I went through some trepidation with Marvel. And at this time, we were back on board, but I was just like, another Spider-Man movie? And I just missed it in theaters, and all I heard was that it was a really good movie. And then I saw it when it got to Redbox, and I was like, why didn't I see this movie? It's a great movie.
Yeah.
So, this movie is directed by John Watts. Now, John Watts made a movie called Cop Car starring Kevin Bacon, and he made a movie called...
I know that.
Yeah. He made a movie called Clown. And this used to be on Netflix, I think. I don't think it is anymore.
Scary movie?
It's a scary movie with one of those covers.
Oh, is it the really gross one?
Yes. You know those horror covers that are actually just they're not cool looking. They're just gross.
It's like a weird orc face guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So anyway, it's so weird. We've talked about this in the Doctor Strange episode, but Scott Derrickson made that movie. We have John Watts coming from a horror background as well, even though only one of the movies he made was horror. And I think there's someone else. I can't remember him right now.
All I can think of is the Shazam guy.
Oh, yeah. Yes, the Shazam guy.
It's not James Wan, though.
Oh, and then there's James Wan.
He did Aquaman.
Yeah, so it's just kind of weird how that keeps happening, I guess. We got produced by the one and only Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal. So this movie's kind of interesting because Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man, and they have for years and years and years, but Sony is not affiliated with Disney or Marvel Studios. So she is the producer of all these Spider-Man movies as well as Kevin Feige because she has the rights to Spider-Man.
Okay.
So she's done Homecoming, Venom, Molly's Game, to cite a few. I don't think she was there in the original runs of Spider-Man or The Amazing Spider-Man. Screenplay. You got Jonathan Goldstein, who did Horrible Bosses 1 and 2, Vacation, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, and he is the director of Game Night.
Whoa, really? Wait, which one? Not the one that was in Bones.
Yeah, that guy.
That's the guy?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's John Francis Daley, who also co-wrote this movie.
They're like a writing team, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yes, they're together on that.
Sweets and Bones, people. Look it up.
And we got John Watts also did the screenplay. Christopher Ford, who is a writing partner with Watts. And then we have Chris McKenna, who did Ant-Man 2, Lego Batman, and I believe the original Jumanji. Eric Somers, who is a writing partner with Chris McKenna. So we have 3 writing partners working on the movie, and we have this...
Well, it's one time or another.
Yeah.
Knowing how it works.
Right. They probably each did a pass on it.
Yeah.
And then the story is by Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly, who are the game night guys.
What is, sorry, the screenplay?
The story.
Story by. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And again, as I know we've talked about this a few times, but if it's been a while for you, listener, the story by would be they kind of came in, they had like the general outline of the story. The screenplay is like the nitty gritty, the specific dialogue, the specific action and whatnot. So they had a hand in both of it, but they still get a story by credit. Music, we got Michael Giacchino again.
Nice.
And this is a pretty solid score. It wasn't too crazy. I feel like
The scene that I only really noticed was when he was like on the plane.
he was on the plane. Oh, yes.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think that the score really, I don't know if Giacchino scored Far From Home, but that's when I feel like the Spider-Man score like really comes into its own because he plays off of all these themes. Whoever did that score, but I think it was him, plays off the themes and like makes them a little more bombastic. And there's that fun score during Mysterio and stuff like that. We're not going to get into that.
You know he did Super 8?
Yes. And he did
A great
Rogue
score.
One and
I love Michael Giacchino.
Coco.
Yeah.
Then we got cinematography by Salvatore Totino. No, wait. Yes, Totino. So that's...
Tostinos?
No, Totino.
Wow.
And he did Everest, Concussion, Bird Box, to name a few.
Okay.
Production companies, Columbia Pictures, Marvel Studios, and Pascal Pictures. Columbia's a part of Sony, so it's still a Sony picture. The movie comes out July 7th, 2017. It has a budget of $175 million. Domestically, it makes $334,201,140. Worldwide, it makes $880,166,924. Huge success. People love it. A lot of people's favorite Spider-Man, this old Tom Holland boy, which I think you're going to get to in a moment. But
I already covered him.
Oh, we did in Civil War.
I didn't even touch his IMDb page.
Oh, dang it. Okay, well, I stand corrected. So this is a little bit weird. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of Sony and Disney.
Okay.
So Sony paid for the $175 million budget. And that means that Sony keeps all of the profits of Homecoming and Disney controlled all of the merchandising rights.
Okay.
But the process was managed by Walt Disney. Does that all make sense?
He was dead.
The company.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just like, why did you say Walt Disney?
Yeah.
Is it a different company than Disney?
That's just what I wrote. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Hey.
The only reason why it's confusing is because people don't refer to Disney as Walt Disney.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm just like, what? Did they reanimate him finally? What's the scoop?
No, not yet. Not yet. Yeah, they're waiting for into Phase 4 to have him
I don't
come
think
in.
people really want him back anymore.
Yeah. I mean, he would definitely be a canceled figure, I'd imagine.
He'd be revived and immediately canceled.
Yeah. So there was a big John Hughes influence on the movie, as is apparent, especially with the scene where he's running.
Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, doing the Bueller thing. And they made... Okay, this is very interesting. So they made a list of things that happened in previous Spider-Man films to avoid having them happen in this movie.
So smart.
So I remember when they announced this movie, the outcry was kind of like, please...
Don't do the Uncle Ben thing.
Well, it wasn't even that. It was don't do an origin story. Please don't do an origin story.
Yeah.
And they don't. They just skip it. And they just kind of reference certain things, but it's very... It's the kind of movie... I think it's... let me know what you think. But I think you could still jump into this with no knowledge of Spider-Man, but it certainly does kind of base itself a little bit off of, like, you already know who this guy is. Like, we don't have to handhold you on that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah.
I still think you could just watch it as like a first Spider-Man movie and you'd be fine. But probably in the same way like Spider-Verse, like you could just watch it and you'd be like, that's cool. But you don't like get all of it unless you've seen some Spider-Man movies.
Definitely. Well, it's like in a way this movie couldn't have been made without the other ones.
Right.
It would be a different movie.
Yeah, it would be totally different. They probably would have done an origin story. Yeah. So they did that, and then Watts really wanted to focus on the lower level of the universe because, at this time, everything's pretty bombastic and huge. So I think that's why he really focused on the like neighborhood aspect of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And nameplay. Oh yeah. So the part of the reason why they named it Homecoming, besides it happening during Homecoming, is like he comes back to the Marvel side, so it's like Homecoming for him.
Cool.
Kind
That's
of a play
cool.
on words. And I just remember that the poster was a big laughing stock when it came out, and it's like kind of famously a really, really poorly designed poster. Like the original poster, not the one that was on the DVD we had.
Oh, what's the original?
Let me pull it up. Why don't you start pulling up your notes while we
Okay.
do this?
So I went over Tom Holland in Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't look at him. And also I didn't do everyone because this is a movie, and I feel like this is kind of where it starts in a way where everyone in this movie down to the extras, down to the people who like don't even really matter. Like everyone is.
Oh yeah, it's
everyone
crazy.
everyone's a fan of one of these actors or actresses.
Yeah.
So it was pretty overwhelming to do this one. Well, I kind of feel like all of them have in a way though too. Anyway.
But this one particularly, I would
so
say.
you have Michael Keaton, which is like, what's the point of even mentioning him in a way? Because it's Michael Keaton.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you don't know that he's Mr. Mom, turn off the podcast now. We don't want you. But turn it back on because we think you would enjoy listening to this.
So it was kind of hard to find the right one, but this is the one. It's really crazy. It has.
Show it to me.
Well, I gotta explain it to the audience. It's got like
They can't see it.
Spider-Man in the background, Tony, Vulture, like all the characters, and then you see New York in the background and the Washington Monument, and the colors don't like come together. So that's the poster.
Ew.
Yeah, but I had to
That's
dig.
awful.
I had to dig a little bit. I had to scroll because they have a bunch of different posters that are way better. So I think
this cover is as overwhelming as looking up the cast of this movie.
yeah, yeah. But see, if you scroll around, there's
Who's that? Oh, it's Happy.
there's different covers, and I think
cooler.
they tried to kind of like be like, oh, let's forget
I'm into
that
this one.
poster.
I'm into
happened.
it.
Yeah, the one where he's lounging on the concrete and there's New York in the background.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That one's so cool. That looks like a people. It came out after the movie, and people have it as a poster.
Oh, I don't know what it was.
This one,
Let me see it.
like a comic book cover.
Oh, that is cool.
Anyway, I'm going to continue. So we have Mr. Mom in this movie, also famously known as Batman from Tim Burton's Batman, the worst Bruce Wayne. Love Michael Keaton, terrible Bruce Wayne. Not a very good Batman either, but
No.
especially not a good Bruce Wayne.
I mean, should we sidebar on this for a second? Because it might be a while till we get to that series of Batman.
There's only two. Oh, technically they're all together.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you rewatch the old Batman movies with like a fresh perspective, it is very obvious that he is not the best Batman or the best Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And this is coming from two Michael Keaton fans. It's just not that good. He doesn't really capture the essence of either parts of his character.
I know that the movie, it's an 80s movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think in Batman movies, at least they should, and I think they did it with the Dark Knight stuff. They made it timeless. But this movie is like, it's an 80s movie. Also, why would you ever think that I would be attracted to Michael Keaton? And because of this movie, I asked my mom if she was attracted to Michael Keaton.
Uh-huh.
And I think she wasn't. I think she was kind of like,
Really?
I can't really remember, but I mean, he's no Tom Cruise, and that's my mom's favorite.
Yeah.
So it's just an odd, like, because Bruce Wayne is Playboy type, so it's like, Michael Keaton.
Well,
Did you look at his hair?
And I think the scene that like really comes together for me that he's not great at it is that scene where Joker attacks Vicky Vale and they're upstairs in that penthouse and he's like, you want to get nuts? You want to get crazy? Like Batman is saying that, or as Bruce Wayne, and I like those. Or
I think I'm into that scene.
No, I like that
Yeah.
scene, but it's just not really Bruce Wayne or Batman.
No, it's Michael Keaton doing a good job at being like
Michael
at
Keaton.
acting or
It's
whatever.
him being Beetlejuice in a different form a little
Kind
bit.
of.
It's weird.
Yeah, so
I still like the original Batman movie. It's really great.
it's just really bad casting. I just think it's bad casting.
Yeah.
The movies are fun.
Yeah.
That it kind of begins and ends there. So biggest reason why the Tim Burton ones are fun is because
The
it's
art
like
design.
the art design. It's like all a set.
Yeah,
like
it's
that
very
town
cool.
square is like they built that entire town square, and it's so cool.
Yeah.
and the Joker stuff is. I just love
Jack
the
Nicholson
Joker stuff.
Joker, great.
Do you remember in the movie when he doesn't have the Joker makeup on, and then something happens and he's like wiping something on his forehead, and you see white, and I'm like, is he putting paint on his face like in front of people? And then he was wiping off. He was wearing like
Makeup over
normal
his like
makeup
white toxic
because he
skin.
fell into the vat of acid.
Yeah.
So now he's white, like he has white skin.
Pretty cool.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Sidebar done. And then he's also Beetlejuice, which if you haven't seen Beetlejuice, turn off this podcast, go watch it, and come back.
Yeah.
But maybe you could just finish the podcast too and then watch it.
Either way.
One of the best Michael Keaton performances.
Oh yeah.
Then he's in Birdman, which you won an Oscar for. Very great movie. And ironically, it's a movie about a washed up actor who's trying to do Broadway and redeem his career. And he's known for being this Birdman superhero character. Like that's all he's known for. And so then this movie is about just him and his career. And the movie, like it ends kind of ambiguously, but it kind of ends with him like embracing he's Birdman, as if Christian Bale embraced like he is Batman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So ironically, I mean, I don't like not that long after he gets casted in this movie and he's
As
a bird.
Vulture.
He's a bird in this movie.
I feel
And it's
like people
that's
didn't talk
intentional.
about that enough.
I know.
I know that they must have, but I feel like you couldn't talk about it more. That he like
Wait, did he win the Oscar for this? Did I just say that? He didn't win for Birdman.
no.
Okay, I don't know. I think the movie was nominated.
Yeah. Who did win that year? I feel like it was kind of weird to me that he didn't win, but
I don't remember.
he like. Yeah, the whole thing is kind of like a satire on like the modern actor who has been in these blockbuster huge hits and then wants to be like
No, he wants to be respected
an
as an
eccentric
actor.
like artist, and then they're like kind of chained to their persona, and then like 2 movies later he's the Vulture, which great casting.
I mean, it seems like he made the right call, right?
I mean, he's great in the movie. He does a great performance. It's better. Here's something. It's better than his Batman's. Easy.
Like, not even a question. I thought you were going to say it's better than Birdman. And I was like, well, hold on a second.
Who knows? I haven't rewatched it in a while.
Really good. He's also in Spotlight. Really great movie. He's in The Other Guys. Making a lot of...
That's one of his best performances as well.
And then most recently, I think he was in Dumbo.
Yes. Very weird performance, but kind of whatever on that one for me.
So then you have Marissa Tomei, who plays Aunt May. And she's in My Cousin Vinny, who did win an Academy Award for it.
Yeah.
She's in a ton of 90s comedies. Very overwhelming IMDb profile.
I'm sure.
She's also in What Women Want, Anger Management, Wild Hogs.
She's in Wild Hogs?
Yeah. She's the person that I think William H. Macy ends up with.
Okay.
So weird. And then we have Zendaya, who I remember when this movie came out, a lot of people were saying like, did you know Zendaya's in it? And I'm just like,
no,
huh?
I
Who's
didn't.
That? And they're like, she's like Broadway. Like, and they got her in this superhero movie.
Oh, I thought
and
she was Disney.
she is Disney.
Okay.
But, I think people were saying that too. And I always thought that people meant the other girl is who
Which
they were
other?
talking about.
Oh,
his love interest.
Yeah.
So the whole time I thought she was the one.
Yeah.
And then come to find out kind of today.
Really?
Kind of. Yeah. That, I know Zendaya now. Like,
yeah.
I've known since for a while, but she's a Disney kid. She, is apparently like, she did a lot of dancing before she acted and modeling. Cool. She started as modeling, then she got into dancing.
She's great in this movie.
Yeah, she's great.
She's so good. All the supporting characters are fantastic in this movie.
So she's a Disney kid. She's in a hit TV show, Euphoria on HBO, which apparently is incredible. And I have not watched it. Don't know why I said that. And then she's in The Greatest Showman. Theater.
Oh, yes.
Singing, dancing. And then she's in a lot of sitcoms.
Okay, cool.
And then you have Jacob Batalon, who is Nelson, who is Peter's best friend.
Oh, you mean Ned?
Oh, Ned. Why did I say Nelson?
I don't know.
Maybe he plays Nelson in something else. He is in pretty much...
Sorry, what was his name again?
Jacob Batalon.
Jacob Batalon. Okay, cool.
And he's in pretty much Spider-Man and a few teenage movies.
Okay.
Soon to be in a production of Don Quixote with Tim Blake Nelson.
Cool.
And he's
on
he's
stage
on
or on?
No, I think it's like either like a TV movie or a movie. It doesn't
Cool.
look like it's coming to theaters. It looks like either straight to on demand.
Oh, okay.
And he's like on the cover, so he's like in the movie.
Oh, is he Sancho Panza?
I think so.
Oh, cool.
And then
Don Quixote is such a great story.
Yeah.
I need to read like the whole thing.
then you have Laura Harrier, who is the love interest.
Oh, okay.
She got her start on a revival of a soap opera, and then she's in Black Klansman.
Really?
You remember? She's the love interest in Black Klansman.
Of
The
who?
girl with the afro.
Nuh-uh.
That's her. Yeah,
Wait, you're saying
that's her.
Are you saying the girl that's the love interest in Homecoming? Nuh-uh. No.
Yeah, she is.
I do believe you, but I have to.
Because I remember when we saw Black Klansman, I was like, "That's the girl from Spider-Man."
Oh, okay. Keep going. I just have to see this for myself.
And then
This is
she's in a
blowing
few
my
other
mind.
things. And then we have Tony Revolori, who is
Flash Thompson.
Flash Thompson. He is in Grand Budapest, which I'm assuming a lot of people know him from. Mm-hmm. And then he's in Dope.
He's in Dope. Oh, okay.
And then he is in a few other movies and TV shows. And then we have Martin Starr. Can't neglect Martin Starr, who is Silicon Valley's Guilfoyle.
Yes. And well, if you reference, you should go back and listen to our episode of The Incredible Hulk, because remember he's in the computer lab.
Yes.
And so even though for some reason they specified that those two characters are different, in my head it just means that teacher went to that school and then he graduated and got a job at the Homecoming school.
Yeah. And
makes more sense.
Important to note, this is a very Martin Starr performance, which is wonderful, but it's important to note for future things he's in. But so he's in Silicon Valley, he's in Freaks and Geeks. That's kind of his where he got off from.
I bet he was a geek.
He's in, you know who's also in Freaks and Geeks?
Everyone?
One of the writers of this movie.
Oh, was it John Francis Daly?
The one that's in Bones?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, he is.
Kicking and Screaming, apparently.
Martin Starr's in Kicking and Screaming?
Yeah, he didn't have like a name. He had like a guy in coffee shop or something like that.
He probably does something like, did you say you wanted a no Fropo Chapo latte?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's also in Superbad, which is just has further skyrocketed his career because that movie was a huge hit. And then he's just he's now big enough that he's like, he makes cameos. He'll play a character in one episode of a sitcom, like a funny Comedy Central Adult Swim sitcom show, because it's Martin Starr.
Yeah.
So he's great. And then
is he our first person that has been a guest on Comedy Bang Bang that is also in a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie? Is he the first person?
Probably not. There's a lot of people that's been on that show.
Okay.
I'm just saying probably not. And then I was going to mention Donald Glover's in this movie, who's Childish Gambino, who's Troy from Community, more importantly. And then we have Bokeem Woodbine, who is the guy that becomes the Shocker. He's not the original one, but he becomes the other one. He's the black guy, the bald guy.
Oh.
Because he gives him the Shocker.
I was thinking of the guy who plays Nacho in Better Call Saul, and I was like, that's not his name. No. That's Michael
But
something.
This guy is in Fargo, the TV show.
Oh,
wonderful,
that guy
wonderful
rules.
performance.
He's good.
And then Hannibal Buress is in this movie as the gym teacher. Kenneth Choi, who was in Captain America.
Yes, and if you listen to our first Avenger episode, Kenneth Choi was in that. He's in Captain America: The First Avenger as one of the platoon, and in Homecoming, his grandson of that character, played by Kenneth Choi again, is the principal of the school. And if you look, there's a picture of his grandfather, who is him in the war in World War II, on his desk in the background.
So they connect his characters, but
not Martin Starr. I don't know why they didn't do that, but.
And then I'm mentioning Nacho from Better Call Saul.
Yeah,
Mando.
Michael Mando. Yeah, that guy is an incredible actor.
He's so good. Why isn't he in more stuff at this point?
I don't know. Maybe it's because Better Call Saul takes up a lot of time.
And then Logan Marshall Green.
Yeah.
Who is Some might say knock off Tom Hardy. We say no.
No, we
He's
love Logan Marshall Green.
He's his own person who happens to look almost identical to Tom Hardy. But he is in Upgrade, which is a wonderful science fiction movie.
Great movie. And if you're listening, Mike, which I know you are, and you haven't seen it, it's a pretty hard R. Don't watch it with your kids, but it's good. It's just for violence.
If anyone's into a really good psychological thriller that many people probably don't know about, that's on Netflix called The Invitation. He's in it, main character. Such a good, just like indie psychological thriller, and he does such a good job in it. And then Jennifer Connelly's in it. I feel like that's important to note. She's Karen, who is to me. She's the voice in the suit that Spider-Man wears.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that she's in it.
Yeah.
Do you think she'll turn into a sentient being like a Vision at some point?
And then they get together.
Ooh, even though he's dead.
And then I just wanted to mention, I don't know anything else this guy's in, but he was just he was the gem of the movie. Michael Chernus, who was the guy that worked for Michael Keaton.
Oh, and the Tinkerer.
He was just so good.
What's his name, the Tinkerer, on IMDb? Because there is a...
Phineas Mason / the Tinkerer.
Cool.
Yeah.
So there's a villain called the Tinkerer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
does he just make like really like weapons and stuff?
Well, I've only read about him in like the 60s run when he was like doing stuff with aliens and like creating alien devices and stuff. So I don't know what they have him do.
That's what they're doing in this movie.
Yeah. But I don't know what they're doing with that character now.
Yeah.
And so one thing before we jump, I'm assuming we're jumping into the plot here in a second.
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out is I have read about half of all the Amazing Spider-Man comic books, so a little over 300 of them. So I will kind of provide a little bit of like the adaptation essence to this. Like this is the first character that I knew more about before I saw the movie in the Marvel universe, and I know that there are obviously different versions of Spider-Man, so there might be something where I say like, oh, I really like how they changed this character to this, and that's just because I've only read the Amazing Spider-Man run, and there might be other runs where maybe that character is that way, but I'm just going to assume that they're adapting from Amazing Spider-Man, even though I'm sure they used a lot of others for sake of the conversation. So the first thing I want to say, fun adaptation stuff, and as a Spider-Man fan, they include so many of his villains in this movie, but through like a very thorough way that is just like world building and stuff that you could pick up on later, but you don't have to.
Okay.
So like they include Shocker.
Yeah.
Really cool. They got Vulture. They got the Tinkerer working with Vulture. Really cool. They have Jeff Davis, who's the Prowler. Which is Donald Glover, which I assume they won't do anything with him, even though they were probably hoping to, now that Spider-Verse came out and the Prowler was like the coolest villain ever in that, and he had that cool theme song. Love Spider-Verse. But so that's one thing I really like about this movie is how they kind of like pick and chose and like brought in villains working together, but they didn't do like the Spider-Man 3 problem where like they made the villain a huge part of the story where Spider-Man had to like defeat him because in Spider-Man 3, you have Sandman, Venom, and another Green Goblin, and there's too many villains.
But was James Franco the other Green Goblin?
Yeah,
okay.
But this one has that good balance where it's like, no, they're just in the world. They could be used later, but they don't try to make them like bigger than the Vulture. It's like the Vulture's the threat in this movie.
Well, because one of the big... Which is kind of a superhero trope movie thing, which is always works, is like Peter's also a villain to himself.
Yes.
In a way, because he's learning things, not listening, because like that's half of the movie.
Yeah.
Which always works. It's always great because it's character development.
Well, and that's the whole rub with Spider-Man. It's why I love him and why I think most people love him is he's always torn between living a normal life and having the responsibility to live the life of this gift that he's been given, or curse that he's been given, if you look at it that way. And so, I like how in this movie they kind of take the angle of like he does want to do more, but Tony's holding him back. In a way,
in a parental way.
Yeah, and yeah, we'll get into that more as we go along. I as you can tell, listener, I am a fan of this movie. This is the third time watching it, and I will say The first time we watched it, I was like, really good. Second time, I mellowed on it a little bit, and this time I was like, this is the best watch I've had of this movie. I liked it the most this time. And speaking to the villain thing one more time, another reason I think using multiple villains in this movie works is, again, unlike Spider-Man 3, even though I don't think that movie is as bad as everyone says it is, they chose like 3 of his most famous, most interesting, coolest villains. And in this movie, like Shocker is really cool, but he's not like the Spider-Man villain. He's not like, but
he's not the Joker.
And he is like a really cool villain, but he's usually like robbing a bank or something like that. So like to use him as kind of a henchman, it's not offensive as a fan. And same with Tinkerer, and then Prowler. They don't really get into his villainous part of him, so that was fine too. He's just existing in that world. Anyway, so the movie starts. It's right after the Battle of Los Angeles that we saw in Avengers. And Michael Keaton is there, and he's in a cleanup crew, and he's gathering stuff. Like, they're basically hired to clean up the city. They have a city contract. And then S.H.I.E.L.D. comes in, and they're like, sorry, we're taking all of this stuff.
And that's a problem because Michael Keaton has invested a lot of money into this cleanup because they will be getting paid a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So this means that he is just simply in debt now, out of a job.
Yeah, he's screwed. Mm-hmm. And what another great thing about this movie, it deals with these themes of like, this is the mess that the heroes and villains made, and we are punished because we have the mess, and now we're punished because we can't clean it up. Now Tony made this mess, and he's going to take care of it. So that's cool. I like his, right off the bat, you're like, this is a great motive for a character.
It's the little guy.
Yeah,
it's a story about the little guy.
And that goes back to John Watts wanting the story to be about like the smaller side of the universe. And I think up to this point, we hadn't explored this part of the big universe, because it's always the big stuff.
Yeah.
And bringing it down. So he does that, and then basically they start stealing alien material, and they can create weapons.
They were left with one too. The catalyst, everything is they like found out that they had accidentally kept one. Mm-hmm. So then they're like, he's like, let's just keep this one. Yeah. And they start experimenting on it, creating more weapons. And then because of that, they've created weapons or used devices that have allowed them to continue to steal these weapons. Because now they're like black market weapon selling.
Yeah. And as far as the Vulture is concerned, so again, classically, he's like a jewel thief kind of guy.
Oh, okay.
And he's got this cool wingsuit, and that's kind of...
I don't know if cool's the right word for the comic book.
It's kind of cool. In a comic book, it's cool.
Leaf. He looks like a giant leaf.
It's cool. So he does that, and I remember when they announced it was Vulture, I was kind of like, of course I like comic books of Vulture, but how is that going to translate on screen? And I think...
And then you remember movies are adaptations of comic books, so it's like...
Well, I'm complimenting the adaptation like on every front on this. Yeah. This is like an example of really good, like knowing when to make changes. Because I think if he was just a jewel thief, I guess there is something there. But it's cool because this does build the bigger Marvel universe, and it also like builds our character, and it's a really cool motive, and it has this whole commentary on like the little guy versus the big guy. So there's like a lot to explore there.
Well, it's like the like his Michael Keaton's big monologue, like at the climax of the movie, is just like, because Tom Holland is like, this is wrong. What you're doing is wrong. Like, you're hurting people. Mm-hmm. And Michael Keaton's like, well, what was Stark Industries doing? What's it been doing this whole time?
Like, they were selling
weapons and hurting people. Mm-hmm. So it's like, he's not any different than me or any better just because he gets to put on a suit and like be a superhero.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm also putting on a suit and like working hard for my family.
Yeah, and I'm sure in his mind too, he's not like stealing from a bank. He's not stealing from his neighbor. He's stealing from someone who you could justify as stole from him. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that's how he justifies it in his head. And that makes for a good villain.
Yeah.
So then we cut to 8 years later, and they're working on all the new gear. We kind of discussed that. And then we cut to Peter Parker, and he's using his phone, and he's doing all this footage, and it shows him going to Berlin, and it's kind of filling in the gap of before and right after the battle in the airport of Civil War. It's all funny stuff.
Through the eyes of a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Because he's screaming out of in excitement, like gasping, like this is the coolest thing that's ever happened. He's given a new suit, like an actual suit from Tony.
That's a funny moment when he's wearing his like homemade suit, and then Happy walks in and he goes, "Why aren't you wearing the suit we gave you?"
He opens that door and he's like, "It's in here." And he's like, "I just thought that was I have a hole in the room. I thought it was a closet." So then there's some footage of the battle, a little bit of Ant-Man getting big. And then there's like his commentary after the battle. He's back in the hotel room and he's just screaming because he's so excited about what happened. To the point where Happy has to come in and tell him that like the walls are thin, buddy. So it's great. And then he goes back home.
Goes back home. He's at high school. He gets almost run over by Flash Thompson, and he calls him Penis Parker.
When he
which is hilarious.
But so he goes back home and Tony's explaining to him what his role is.
Like, oh yeah, we're gonna give you a call whenever we need you.
So he's like, "So I'm Avenger," and he's like, "No, but we'll call you."
Yeah.
Like if and when.
I want to throw something at you. I like Iron Man, of course. I like Tony Stark. Love Robert Downey Jr. All that in the series. This movie, and maybe I just want to explore this. I think, and this is not in a bad way. Like I like what they did, but this movie, I think more than any of the other ones, I don't really like Tony Stark in this movie.
Oh, really?
Like he makes me kind of mad.
In what way?
In just the way that it's like what gives you the right to tell this kid when and if he can like help?
That's a good point.
And then when he doesn't, like, I know later in the movie when they attack the submarine, he's like, "See, I had it under control. The FBI was there," but it's like the FBI wasn't going to be able to stop those guys.
But if you think about it this way, like think about it through Tony Stark's eyes. It's like he doesn't have a responsibility.
Yeah.
But he puts it upon himself as a father, as a responsibility to this kid who has no father. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I think it's conscious too in his mind. He's like, I can parent this kid. Yeah. I can do better than how my dad did, which is what he says. Yeah. So it's like,
I think it's really good writing. No, but it's true to his character.
That's why I think that I'm fine with it. Like, I'm totally fine with that. I don't get mad about it. I mean, I only get frustrated because Peter gets frustrated, you know, because it's like, he does have potential, but Tony sees it and he's like, Tony knows also who Tony is. Yeah. So it's like, I don't want that kid to get so much power that he's going to lose. Like his ego is going to go through the roof, and what happened to him. He's too young. Yeah. So it's almost like, I mean, it's like anything when you're a kid. It's like you get your license and you just think you can drive anywhere. Like go on a trip, but you're still 16. Yeah. And your parents like, you can't just go anywhere still. It doesn't give you freedom to do anything you want.
It's a good point.
So it is exactly the Spider-Man thing. With great power comes great responsibility. It's as if Tony is accepting that responsibility for Peter at the moment. Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, I want to reiterate, like, I think it's really good, and I like what they did, but just it frustrates me when I watch the movie. All 3 times, it's like, Tony, like, you got to, like, believe in this kid. And I think part of it is because he, like, had him do a task that should have got him killed. And so I'm like, how come he's okay signing away Peter's life in Berlin to Captain America, who he says in the movie, he's like, "Oh, if Cap wanted you killed, he would have killed you." But Cap was like not doing okay at that time. Like none of those guys on that team, like if you were in Tony's,
it was a civil war.
It was a civil war. Like they could have died. And so he's like, "Yeah, it's okay if you're helping me and myself." And if this is good writing for Tony, because that's who Tony is. It's like, yes, it's okay if you're helping me and helping my image, but as soon as you want to do your own thing and help on your time, I can't control you anymore. Therefore, I don't want you to do it.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I'm sure that's part of it.
And then by the end of the movie, he tries to save face, and he's like, I want you to be an Avenger. Like, this was all a test and stuff like that.
Well, I think he also, because he is 15, he wants him to understand why he would want to be a superhero. Yeah. Because that big moment that they have where he's taking the suit back and Peter's like, "No, but I need it." And he's like, "Well, if you need it, you don't need it." Yeah. He says that to him, which is absolutely true. Because if you watch the Iron Man movies again, Same thing happens in Iron Man 2. He loses the suit for most of the movie.
Or Iron Man 3, I think.
Oh yeah, Iron Man 3. Yeah. And most of the movie is him learning that he doesn't need the suit to be Iron Man.
He's the man is what makes the suit, not the suit that makes him man.
Exactly. So because of his character arc, he's able to parent Peter with his character arc, and he knows from experience that when this kid tells him that he needs it, he knows that he doesn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's just such great writing. I understand the frustration. I understand.
Yeah.
That. And I think that's you should be frustrated.
Yeah.
That's good. That means that the movie is doing its job.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in no way a negative thing.
Yeah.
But, and again, another layer, we got the little man versus the big man themes in this movie. And then the whole movie is about parenting. Because then if you go to the Vulture and his relationship with his daughter and his family, it's like a different side of the coin of parenting. So the whole movie's about parenting. Pretty cool. Like when you can find those deeper themes. Back to the plot. We meet Ned, who is just great. I love this kid. He's so funny. And like every line is like a 10 out of 10 hilarious.
Yeah.
And then there's the friendly neighborhood.
Oh, you know what I like what they do about this movie? So like Peter is like a nerd. He gets made fun of by Flash. Sure.
Yeah.
At the party, everyone's kind of making fun of him. Sure. But it's not your typical he's a nerd and everyone hates him. Like everyone, it's such like it is very it's a very updated version of high school, and updated meaning it is 2 days high school.
Yeah, because like being the sports guy isn't like the cool thing anymore.
No, like Flash
cool
isn't even a jock. He's on the same debate team that Peter is. So I think
and classically he's a football like squad leader guy.
So that's super smart that they casted him, and that's how they wrote his character. And like he's not like really like Peter's not really a loser. He's not very much portrayed that way, when usually that's like he's a loser. He's really weak. Yeah. Which I think that if they had done an origin story, they probably would have played on them more, because I remember the Tobey Maguire ones. Yeah. Like the beginning's really much like that. Like he is a loser, a wimp, small. And then he becomes the big, like, I mean, Spider-Man. Yeah. So like I just really appreciate that they could have wasted so much time on that, and it would have been so redundant and so boring. But it's just like, it's high school. Everyone's weird because their bodies are changing. And they play on stuff like that. And like everyone can kind of have a conversation with anyone. Yeah, yeah. So I appreciate that in this movie.
Oh, me too. And
it plays on it. It makes the second movie funnier.
Oh yeah.
Because of the world that they've created for it.
Love Far From Home. Far From Home takes everything I love about Homecoming and makes it even more. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Then we get to the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man montage where he's going around, and this is maybe the best scene in the movie. Well, second best scene in the movie to me, because it's just showing like it's just such a good reflection of the idea behind Spider-Man, and it shows so much about not just the character of Peter Parker, but like the very nature of Spider-Man and what Spider-Man does, and like how he does have to deal with like lower tier crime, I guess you could say. And he finds I love how he finds a bike, like he sees someone steal a bike, he gets the bike, and then he can't find the owner, so he just webs it up and says like, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And then, well, he doesn't say that, but he says something like that. And then he sees someone who looks like they're breaking into the car, and he shoots a web, and they're stuck. And they were getting into their own car. Yeah. And then Stanley pokes his head out and starts talking to this lady across the street. Great cameo. Yeah. All that stuff, love. Then he goes to a bank where these people are fighting, or they're robbing this bank, and he tries to stop them, and they have a supercharged weapon. ATM. Yeah, the ATM.
Yeah, and also meanwhile the whole time, this like montage, he is like contacting Happy. Yeah, because he's to be like, Happy, yes. I've been like working a lot. I've been, he's training, like I've been doing a lot of fighting crime.
Find where the grocery store was. Stuff like that.
Yeah. So like that the whole time that's going on too, because it's like he is motivated by like doing, he's a superhero. He's using his powers to help people. That's like part of his motivation. But his motivation is also to prove to Happy and Tony that he's working.
Yeah.
So so then he goes he goes to an ATM and discovers that these guys wearing Avengers masks are robbing an ATM with the weapon thing.
Yeah, which we'll find out is made by Vulture later.
Yeah. So what it does is it sends off a supercharged blast that blows up the sandwich shop across the street that Peter goes to like every day. So he intimately knows these people.
Yeah.
So
now he's got some skin in the game.
Well, also it's kind of his fault.
Yeah.
In a way, you know, because publicity wise, everyone even more is not a fan of Spider-Man. Like in a way, you know, it puts like a black mark on his reputation. So that's pretty bad.
Yeah. And then he crawls into his room, and Ned is sitting there, and he finds out right off the bat in a Spider-Man movie, which Spider-Man, to me, it's like you can't ever give his identity away. That's like one of the main things about Spider-Man.
Well, I think is he the only character, the only Avenger that his identity is hidden? Ant-Man, probably you would say the same thing. No one knows his identity.
Ant-Man's identity
but like
is hidden.
everyone knows who Tony Stark is. I feel like everyone knows who Steve Rogers is.
Oh yeah.
Black Widow.
Yes,
I think
she went on the stand at the Supreme Court in Iron Man 2.
So her,
Bruce Banner. I don't think people know. I think they just know the Hulk. I think it's just the Hulk that's out there.
Okay. Guardians doesn't really count. They're not from this galaxy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's interesting because like the big thing about Spider-Man is keeping his identity secret.
So Ned finds out that he is Spider-Man, and he asks if he can be the guy in the chair, like the computer hacker in the chair.
The Oracle.
Yeah. And then go to school the next day, and really great piece of world building. Fills out the world, love it, love it, love it, is when they're sitting in the gym class and they're watching a video of Captain America talking about like gym class. And it's with Hannibal Buress, and he says something like, this guy's, I guess he's like a criminal or something now, but whatever, just watch the video, which is a nice throwaway. Oh, also earlier in the movie.
Because of Civil War.
Yeah.
Oh.
Pretty cool. Earlier in the movie, the camera's like panning by a classroom, and you can hear a teacher say like, so the Sokovia Accords basically mean that like, and he's talking about the Sokovia Accords in Civil War, which is pretty cool.
Leading up to this part is another montage of Ned just asking Peter questions about his abilities, which is just like it's just like, cool, we've got all of that expository information out, and it's funny.
Yeah, that's a good way to dump that information, but in a character-driven way. Then they go to Liz's party because Ned tells everyone that Peter knows Spider-Man because of his Stark internship. And while they're out there, Ned wears a hat to the party. It's like an Indiana Jones hat.
And he says
funny.
It gives him confidence.
Yeah.
And then at some point during the party, he calls Peter and he's like, Peter, the hat's not working.
And so they go there, and Liz is like the girl for Spider-Man. Like he wants to be with this girl. And the parents are out of town, which is important for later. And so then when he's dressed, because he's going to make an appearance as Spider-Man at the party. So he's putting on his costume, and then he sees this explosion far off, and he goes to investigate, and he discovers Donald Glover trying to buy weapons from the two guys that are Shocker in the movie. And as he does it, a chase ensues. John Hughes reference to Ferris Bueller's running through the getting to his house in Ferris Bueller, and they even show a footage of people watching Ferris Bueller. And then, so he gets like, Vulture shows up. That's right, Vulture shows up at the end, and he like brings him up really high into the air. And Vulture, I like Vulture's costume. We should talk about that for a second, because we have talked many times on this podcast about this series, how there are certain characters like Scarlet Witch who were like, why can't they just commit to a cool costume instead of a duster?
Or why can't they make it more practical, like in Thor Ragnarok?
Yeah.
Or that costume actually might be too practical. That might be, and it's not practical, but it's too tactile for the world that they're in.
Yeah, but this one's
great.
Since it's like a lower tier guy.
He's a little guy.
Or like a little guy. Yeah, like him just wearing this like really practical suit, I think is cool. And his eyes are really cool because they're just beet green. And like beets. Beets are green.
Yeah, I don't think beet green is a term. I think
No.
it's just beet red.
I was thinking beady eyes, I think.
Oh, they're
but-
two green dots like night vision.
Yeah, and he is because in the comics he has like feathers all over him, and I just think it would have looked kind of dumb. Even though I want them to be a little more bombastic, I think that would have been too much.
Yeah, I think it's practical. It is tactile, like as it should be. Like you can look at it and you're like, I kind of understand how it works. It's
Yeah.
crazy, but I understand. And then he just wears like a pilot, it reminds me of like a
Bomber jacket.
1930s, like a bomber jacket with the fur, which vultures have those feathers around their necks. So that's like that really is icing on the cake to me.
Uh-huh.
But what's cool is like it's technically a suit, but all it really is him putting his arms in something and a helmet on.
Yeah.
Because when he lands, he just gets out of it.
Yeah.
It's not
well,
like
and
he's
he's
still
got like
wearing it.
grappling feet as well.
That too. But that's just it's not like an actual suit thing, you know?
Yeah. But basically, him and Spider-Man get in a fight, and then Iron Man has to come save him because the suit that he's wearing like alerts him that he's in danger. And when he's there, he's like, Spider-Man, and we already kind of discussed all the parenting stuff in this movie and what he deals, but he's like, you can't do this. And Spider-Man sees that he didn't even show up. It's just an empty Iron Man suit. And the whole, for a lot of the movie, Tony Stark's just in India, like at a wedding or something,
I
which
think this is the only time they show that.
kind of a funny bit. I don't know why, and they don't explain it. But it's kind of just funny that he's just out in India, like, for no reason, and they don't explain it. Anyway. And then when Shocker and Vulture all meet back at their base, Vulture's like, you are being crazy with this stuff, and he just kills Logan Marshall Green, on accident because he thought it was a different type of gun, but he does kill him. And then the guy from Fargo that we discussed earlier in the podcast
Becomes Shocker.
He becomes Shocker.
And then Peter finds a little part that came off of out of the van or something.
Yes, that's right.
That he gets, and it has one of those purple alien
stones.
energy things in it.
Yeah.
So, Ned calls him at the same time, and Ned's like, "You shouldn't come back to the party because Flash is like, everyone with me, penis, Parker."
Yeah.
So that's the end scene.
Yeah. And then basically Peter goes to with his decathlon team, as he was not planning on going on before, but now he's going to, because he hasn't lost. No, not yet. So he goes to Washington, D.C., and he's following this truck because they figure out how to track the stone that he has to find the stuff. Hijinks ensue. He gets trapped in this truck. And then we get this whole montage where he's locked in a shop and he gets to like test out a lot of his Spider-Man gear. And
But he's at S.H.I.E.L.D., isn't he? Or he's like at a storage facility for S.H.I.E.L.D. or something.
Yes. Yeah. But he's like locked in this warehouse. And so he's doing his thing. He's, help me.
Well, he's like you said, he's learning everything about the suit. He discovers Karen. Well, no, that's not the first time he discovers her. Or is it?
I think it is.
So he has a robot in the suit. He takes off the training wheels. Oh, no, Ned takes off the training wheels.
Oh, yeah. So I guess they find that out earlier.
That's when he starts using it. Meanwhile, I think that's the same time. He's there for so long that the decathlon happens and his team wins. Mm-hmm. So I don't even remember how he gets out of there. I think he's just out at some point. He just finds a way out. It's inferred.
He like scientifically breaks out, basically.
So
he hacks out.
By the time he gets out, decathlon's done. His team won. No thanks to him. Everyone's like, where is Peter? Mm-hmm. They all go to the Washington Monument as like a tour.
Yeah.
So most of his team are going up the elevator in the Washington Monument, and Ned has in his backpack the energy purple crystal thing, and that for some reason I don't remember why it sets off an reaction.
Explosion, yeah.
So the elevator shaft like breaks that they're in, and if anyone's seen the Washington Monument, it's pretty effing high. So so Peter gets there, just in time as it happens. And he's like, I got to save them. And he's trying to get in. He can't really figure out how besides like trying to break through this like bulletproof window. At the same time, the police come in helicopters. And because he's a vigilante, they're like, we will shoot you if you do not stop.
Yeah.
Because they're, it's like he's gonna make it worse.
By the
He's
way,
gonna kill
scene
everyone.
is shot pretty nicely.
I agree.
mean, it's pretty like it gives you that feeling like you're on the top of a cliff and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's a little
so
not claustrophobic, but it's tense.
yeah. So Peter makes it inside without getting shot. Thanks, police. And he gets in time. He gets inside just in time as like the elevator is about to go down, like hundreds of feet.
Yeah.
Should mention that the tour guide is Martha from Baskets. Wonderful, tiny little gem in the movie. So he saves them. Just cut to that. He saves everyone.
Yeah.
And then he leaves. They do a funny joke in reference to the other Spider-Man movies where he's hanging upside down and Liz is looking at him and Karen, the voice, is like, "This is your moment, Peter. Kiss her."
Yeah.
Which is like obviously not the moment.
Yeah.
But it
and then he
funny.
falls down the shaft.
Yeah. So then they go back home. It was this huge thing that happened. Everyone's so scared. Aunt May, was like, "I'm so glad you're okay. You're safe." And then I think, oh no. Okay. So then everything's fine. Peter, if anything, has just learned more intel about the bad guys and then learns that they're going to be on the Staten Island ferry. And that's right. They're back at school and Ned's like, "Okay, let's go to class." And Peter's like, I can't go to class anymore.
Yeah.
Like he's like, high school's, I'm like beyond high school now.
Yeah.
Which he's not. Like, I mean, a lot of that's because of Tony won't let him, but it's like, he's not. Like, so he tries leaving, he gets detention instead. And then he just straight up leaves detention. And I think that's when he goes to Staten Island.
Yeah.
The ferry. Because there's bad guys on the ship. There's a huge weapons deal that's about to go down. And that's when we see Nacho or the Scorpion guy. And so he, is covertly trying to figure out how to get there. And then he just kind of like breaks up the party and then chaos happens. One of the big bad weapons goes off and splits the entire ferry in half, which means now not only is he trying to not get killed by these bad guys, the ferry is collapsing in on itself.
And you have to have the signature Spider-Man holding two webs, holding something together or pulling it apart. Just like in Spider-Man 1, when he's holding the cart and Mary Jane, or in Spider-Man 2 when he's holding back the subway or the subway. I don't remember Spider-Man 3 or the other two Amazing Spider-Mans, but it feels like that's just like a trope. Yeah, you got to do it.
Yeah. This I feel like is the moment when it's like, oh, Peter is doing the wrong thing.
I just don't feel that way.
See, for this one especially, it's like because when this deal's going down, like right before S hits the fan, these guys break out of the store and they're like, "FBI, stop." So it's like the FBI, and I know you mentioned something about this earlier, but like the FBI were already tailing these people and they were already taking care of it.
Well,
which
I guess,
to me is like, Tony's like, keep your nose out of basically the big things.
Yeah.
Just be the neighborhood guy. Like help the pickpocketers and the cat nabbers or whatever. So
the cat nabbers,
what's the word for that? Cat burglars. I
thought you meant people who steal cats.
No, I meant a cat burglar.
Like very specific.
But and it's that to me. That's when it's like, oh, like I mean, it's Tony. He has to know like the FBI is here doing this thing. He probably knows where the CIA is right now doing this thing, and then SHIELD he knows is here doing this thing. So it's like
it's just also that classic thing where if you know that this kid is doing this stuff, why don't you tell him, "Hey,
yes,
I have the FBI trailing these people." Because the whole movie, see, if I was Spider-Man, the whole movie, he's going, "Happy, I gotta tell you, there's this guy, he's got weapons, he could be dangerous." And Happy's like, "Yeah, whatever, I don't care. Don't tell me about it." And Iron Man is the same way. He's like, "I don't care. Don't tell me about it." And if you know anything about Iron Man, you know he's a pretentious jerk. So like, okay, if he doesn't care about it, like he probably means that. So to assume that he would take action, I think would be to assume more out of Tony than usually you can assume.
Assume what? That he doesn't care?
No. If you assumed that he is like taking care of the situation without him explicitly saying it, then it's like, well, he usually doesn't. Usually when he takes care of a situation, he creates a robot that tries to destroy the Earth.
You can also think about it this way, which I don't really buy, but like a lot of the times different branches of government, like law enforcement, like don't know what the other types of law enforcement are doing.
That's true.
Like
that's a good point.
Local law enforcement here doesn't know what the FBI in Oregon's doing.
Yeah.
to a really deep degree. Surface level, probably. So when the FBI comes out on this ferry, I mean, you could maybe argue like, why would Tony know what the FBI is doing? He's not the FBI. But at the same time, it's
he said he called it in.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's like, but it's Tony. He's basically the president of the United States.
Yeah.
He knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So like,
again, I like the conflict, but it's just that thing where it's like, I guess we've also just seen how like basically the entire universe, besides a few specific movies, like a lot of the big problems are because of Tony. So it's like, so you're going to tell this kid not to try and stop crime when you sold weapons, which is again why I think it's so good, like Tony. But he sold weapons. I don't know. It's just one of those things. The whole movie, I'm like never on Iron Man's side.
I think
on
that
this movie.
For this moment, I really feel like, oh man, Peter really screwed this up, and I only feel that way because he, I think that, like he's a big part of why that weapon went off, split the ferry in half, and now hundreds of people are about to die. And you think like, would that happen if he wasn't there? I mean, there were already weapons on the ship. It's kind of that. Is it the Murphy's Law? Like, if something will happen, it will happen. Is that the thing?
Well, I think it's if anything can happen, it will, or something like that.
I think that's kind of the whole argument.
Well, and if you think like if Spider-Man couldn't stop these guys, do you think the FBI could have stopped these guys?
That's another thing to think of too.
Everyone would have been murdered.
Yeah. So you're like, okay, maybe it's like also like Schrodinger's cat. Like if he didn't do anything, probably would have been fine. But if he did do something, probably would have been fine.
It's just it's funny too because it's like, okay, if a fight broke out right in front of our apartment here, and like I went outside and I tried to stop the fight, but in the meantime someone pulled a gun and shot someone because the fight had escalated, I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
I was trying to do something good.
Yeah.
It just turned out worse than if I hadn't. But it's better to do the good thing than not do anything at all.
Yeah.
So anyway,
thank you for listening to our ethical debate today. And it's in theme with this movie because it's a debate team.
Oh, wow. Nice poll.
But this is, after this moment is when Tony takes away Peter's suit.
Yeah.
And he loses the quote unquote internship.
Mm-hmm. And now we can just skip way ahead because we discussed all of that.
People are probably tired of hearing about this parent thing. Well, watch out, people, because Peter gets detention for like the rest of the year, which is one thing. But then he finally asks Liz to homecoming, to which she says yes, to which Peter picks her up at her house where her parents are.
And who is it but Bruce Wayne himself, Adrian Toomes, a.k.a. the Vulture.
Adrian Toomes.
That's his name. Adrian Toomes is the Vulture.
Oh. He doesn't look like an Adrian.
Well, maybe you should grow up because this is big boy talk about Spider-Man. And then we have the great scene where they're driving to the homecoming dance.
Peter is just like deer in the headlights the whole time because he knows who he is.
And Tom Holland's acting in these two scenes, amazing.
And you know what's great?
And Michael Keaton is just chewing. He is chewing the scenery, and he's going big. And I
don't know
about
the car part, but I know when he was in their house, no music.
No.
Not even
There's music in the
lick.
car.
Okay, but not even a lick of music.
And he's chopping vegetables. He's got a big chef knife, which is that's like what you do. If you want someone to be like scary, give them a knife and make them cook. It's
just
always
like
scary.
Just throw it around like with their hand
willy-nilly,
gestures. Yeah. So then he's asking Peter questions in the car.
And he surmises that he's Spider-Man.
Yes. So he after his daughter leaves the car, he takes out a gun, and
Well, wait. Sorry. Before that, they stop at a stop sign.
Yes.
And Michael Keaton's face is red, and the whole car is kind of a red hue because it's dark, and he's kind of leaning over, and he's
that's like classic comic book stuff.
Yeah, and he's kind of threatening Peter, but through words that aren't threatening. Like, oh, not this, but like, oh, what would happen if you were to fall off this cliff in front of us right now? That sort of a threat. And then the light turns green, and he's all green, and he's the Vulture who's green and
red for Spider-Man originally or previously.
Oh yeah, cool. It's just so cool. Best scene in the movie. And it's really intense. I mean, it's really intense because you're like, I really don't know what's about to happen.
So then when his daughter does get out of the car and
Like, Peter, wait up a second.
yeah.
I gotta give him the dad talk.
right, and he takes out a gun, and he basically tells Peter, like, we don't want my daughter to find out anything, right? Like, this is just between you and me, and like I said, I mean, you walk out of this car and you don't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you saved my life, because he originally did something that saved him, so he's like, and I'm a good man.
No, he saved his daughter at the Washington
That's right.
Monument.
He's like, I'm a good man. I honored that. So if you get out of this car and you just turn
Walk
the other
away.
way, I'll forget that you were even here.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, good, bad guy thing.
And it's a classic Spider-Man giving him the choice between now he can go to the homecoming dance. He can do something normal. He can be a kid. He can even do what Tony asked him to do and stay out of it. But he's Spider-Man and he has the responsibility. So
he ditches his prom date.
He ditches his prom date. Ned goes into the computer room and is the man at the computer. He stops Shocker pretty quickly because they just haven't made him much of a threat. They just make him a kind of threat, which
they
I'm fine
basically
with.
put that scene in there to eliminate him as a threat.
Mm-hmm. And then we find out that Vulture's doing one final steal
or loot because
heist on a shield helicarrier or shield
throughout
plane.
this movie. Shield the Avengers headquarters is moving from New York City to upstate, which means they're moving everything out of that Stark building, which means they're putting everything into this helicarrier. Is that what it's called?
It's a plane actually.
Into this giant cargo plane.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just really like how because the whole, like, throughout the movie, it's like he's talking, whenever he gets a chance to talk to Happy, Happy's like, I don't have time, we're moving.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, that actually does go somewhere.
It has a payoff, yeah.
Because that's the exact stuff that Michael Keaton's going to steal.
Yeah.
So that continue.
And then Spider-Man goes to the lair of Vulture and he's like, you got to stop. Vulture traps him under a bunch of rubble, and they reference a really famous Spider-Man panel where he's trapped under rubble. I think it's called Spidey No More or Spider-Man No More. It's in the first 50 issues. It's like one of the all-time classics. Where he's like thinking about his life and he's like, I'm gonna die, and like Aunt May's gonna die.
The acting is so good too. Right there is when he's a kid.
He's like, help.
He's like crying.
He's crying, and then he has to
it's like an Infinity War. Just that's the moment. That everyone cries is when he's starting to disintegrate.
Yeah,
and he's looking at Tony.
Wait.
Yeah, and he's looking at Tony and he says, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, you're just a kid and you're apologizing.
Yeah.
Because that's what well, when we get there, I'll just go off on it more.
And then he gets the strength to push the building off of him and to go after Vulture. They have this crazy fight sequence on the plane that is shielded.
Yeah.
That has like
it's like camouflage.
Camouflage, yeah. Like mirrors on it, but that are cameras. But and they're fighting and stuff, and it's a pretty cool fight, and it's this kind of there's this frantic energy to it because Spider-Man's so out of his element. He can't like swing from stuff. The plane's going so quick he can hardly hold on. They fight, the plane crashes, and then like Spider-Man is like really down on his luck. In terms physically, like things are just rough. And then Vulture's still wanting to escape with the stuff. His wings explode, and all of that stuff happens. And then that is the end of the conflict. Am I correct in saying that, Jordan?
Yes.
Okay.
Try to get a picture. Yeah,
we should post that probably for next week, which is Puss in Boots. Or no, we're back to Civil War this next week. And then Iron Man is like, yo, great job. I'm so happy everything worked out. Do you want to be an Avenger now? Spider-Man says, no, I know that this is a test. He shows the Iron Spider suit, which will be used in Avengers Infinity War. Very cool. Mm. And then all of a sudden, Gwyneth Paltrow shows up. And
in quite a revealing, very unprofessional outfit. And they're doing a press release, mind you. And also, she's CEO of Stark Industries, and she's wearing, the skirt's fine. It's not the skirt that I have a problem with. She's wearing like a cotton cami tank top that is just like, it's very tight and form-fitting, which is just like, okay, fine, that happens. But it's just like, it's brown and her skirt's black. Who just like, tell me the person who had their job was to put together only one costume for her because she's in this movie once.
Well, it was probably her person that she hired to make her a personalized library.
Oh my gosh, it was so bad.
home.
It was so bad. And then I just feel like in this movie she's wearing a wig, and I could totally be wrong.
It does look like
but
she's
it's
wearing
just,
a wig.
you can tell when it's a wig when the hair that's not on the scalp, you know what I mean? It's thin.
Yeah.
It's too thin. It's wigs you can tell are really bad when you can see through, because like usually when you have hair like right here, you can't see the back of my hair because of my hair right here. But usually when people are wearing a wig, you can see that back part of the hair.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's just like it pulls you. It's suspension of disbelief
Yeah. Well,
that
and
drips you out of it.
you remember the last time we were with Robert Downey Jr. in this series? What is it? Oh yeah, me and Pepper Potts broke up.
That too.
And
Yeah.
then they're just together, and there's not even a throwaway line like "Glad we got back together in Bangladesh," which would have been stupid. But
something.
there's nothing, and it reeks of like, oh yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow really just is kind of tired of the series. That's what it reeks of. And then of course she's in Endgame quite a bit and Infinity War. Well, not a lot in Infinity War, but you're kind of like, okay, I guess she does want to be in the series. It's the weird like Portman thing where you're like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
We love this series, but it's not without its faults. And some of that I think is like, it's poor writing in that regard, but also, I mean, they are restricted to like a lot of things. Like if you're just writing this story, you can spend as much time as you want
But
on
at least
things like
at least
that.
in Thor Ragnarok, there's someone that says, "Sorry, you broke up with Jane."
Yeah.
They at least say that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just weird that
However
they're back
cheesy
together.
it is,
Yeah.
So whatever there.
You just wish, I mean, if you could like go back in Civil War.
Wait, how did we jump forward to that yet? We didn't even talk about the last battle scene.
We did.
Was I not paying attention
plane?
that much?
And then when they're on the ground and everything blows up.
That's when I zoned out for a second.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. But anyway, that's just odd.
Yeah.
That's just odd. It's the vision thing as well. So it's like, oh, so they had probably a lot of character growth and it's all off screen. Cool. And then he has become Spider-Man. And Robert Downey Jr. was paid $10 million to do this
Wait,
movie.
did you mention that he turned down Tony's offer? And I zoned out there too?
Yeah. Yeah. We covered all that.
Cool.
And then post-credit scene, Michael Mando, who
I'm like, Michael Madsen?
Michael Mando, who was on the ferry, and we find out his name is Mac Gargan or Mark Gargan. I can't remember the first name. Who's the Scorpion? Is like, I heard what Spider-Man's identity is, and Vulture's like, I'm not telling you. And they're both in prison, and I'm like, ooh, is Scorpion gonna be in a movie?
That'd be cool.
And then there's the best, one of the best post-credit scenes ever, where it shows Captain America doing one of his videos again, and it's about patience, and he's like, sometimes things just aren't even worth waiting for. How many more of these do we have to do?
I love that. That's one of the best ones.
Yeah, good
this movie.
Really fun. I hope that whenever they make Spider-Man 3 in this series, that they do some sort of thing about home again. So it's like Homecoming, Far From Home, and
Homeward Bound. That's the obvious title, right?
And I if you've been listening to the podcast, I edited in me explaining that Spider-Man is now back for
So why are you saying it now?
2 Marvel movies, just to make sure, because this is the Spider-Man episode. And I think this is kind of funny, Jordan. Do we have any more thoughts on this movie?
No.
I think we covered it very thoroughly. And you can take that to the dang bank if you want. Remember to rate, review, subscribe.
Please.
Also, I launched a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Micah McCaw. And if you sign up for it, you can get Macaw Podcast Universe episodes on Monday instead of Friday. So you get them early. And then there's a lot of other music-related things that you will get. And I believe next week I will be coming out with the second single for my album.
Whoa.
A song called Manifest Destiny. It's a banger. I love it. And if you haven't, I still have the dance out there. But finally, Jordan, this is kind of funny. Little inside baseball for you, listener. yesterday you were listening to, or yesterday, listener, you got our bonus episode, which is a Halloween special about Fantastic Four. And right now, in us recording these, our next episode is Black Panther, because we already recorded Thor Ragnarok. So we have a Michael B. Jordan double feature. One of the worst movies that Marvel has ever produced, and one of the best movies that Marvel has ever produced. Kind of funny. Anyway, next week is Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Get your Thor on, baby.